Welcome back to the Shankly Sessions, the Liverpool podcast we bring you each and every week, possibly nearly every day at this stage. Joining me tonight, my right hand man on the Shankly Sessions, where we're going to take a look back at a very special year in Liverpool's history 2001, the treble season. How are you, my man?
I absolutely could not be better. Always good to talk about Liverpool glory, especially when you have that man there over your right shoulder. It actually was because we lost Gerard Houllier. I was gonna say that's God on your right hand shoulder and the devil on your other, but
No,
I make no plans about it. But
no, absolutely not.
yeah, nah, what a season it was. What I say, looking forward to this one. Oh, sorry, no, just before we get started, just want to send a message of support to young David Brooks off one, who announced today that he's been diagnosed with stage 2 Hodgkin's lymphoma. 24 years of age. Cancer is a horrible, evil motherfucker, but he's got a lot of support behind him, and he's going to beat this, and we're all behind him. So thoughts and prayers with David Brooks tonight.
100%, absolutely. Well, if I could show you behind the camera in front of me here, I have the jersey from the Worthington Cup with Fowler's autograph on it hanging right in front of me here. So this is a very special treble and a very special episode for me.
The treble no one wants to acknowledge.
And I'll give you, he looks great even in the bucket hat, doesn't
he? He's one of our own. Come here, just whatever God does, we follow.
I met him down in the Forge pub down in Wicklow that night. It was an evening with him and McAteer. And I'm not joking, if you haven't had an evening with him and McAteer yet, they're absolutely electric together. But
you haven't night with Fowler and McAteer, have you not?
Oh, I tell you, man, it's unbelievable. Like, McAteer just bounces off him with some great stuff. But I asked him the question. I said to him on the night when he was signing the jersey, I said, you must remember that one well, do you? And he said, my friend, he says, I remember every single one of them. Every single one of them, he said. And I just thought that was a stellar answer. But let's get into the treble. Initial thoughts. What was your thinking? What was the treble to you?
The treble was everything. That was my first kind of. Hold on. That was my first kind of big like dose of glory as a Liverpool fan. You know, there was the '94 Coca-Cola Cup where McManaman scored that absolutely spellbinding goal. There was bits and pieces on the way, but that 2001 was kind of like the first big season as a Liverpool fan. I became a Liverpool fan in 94, 95. So Fowler was only coming onto the scene then, and when we got to this treble, this was kind of when Fowler was coming towards the end of his Liverpool love affair. Yeah. Which we've talked about in the past when we've done his Legend series. Everyone knows what happened there between. It's sad to see those two behind you looking that happy and the way they fell out and put Robbie out the door. But that was my first big dose of glory as a Liverpool fan. And I kind of relish in the fact that nobody acknowledges it as a treble winning season. But for us, that was everything. Especially in the manner that we won the 3 trophies. The game against Alves.
They were all nail biting, weren't they?
Just all like it's just typical Liverpool. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's great to come out when you're watching it. It's nail biting, but to come out on the better side of a 5-4, and then we talk about the FA Cup. Like, that was one of the best games of football because nobody. That was the Arsenal side that was untouchable. And Michael owned that day, and we'll get on to that cup final as well. But outstanding season. Just the pictures of the team going through. Robbie Fowler with the bucket hat, a young Steven Gerrard, Danny the Man Killer. Jamie Redknapp was still there. Yeah, it was a great time to be a fan. Well, every time we win a trophy is a great time to be a fan. But it was we were like a pig in shite that season. Yeah, everywhere we looked over the cup final.
I often say that the people that refer to it as the Mickey Mouse treble are the people who count charity shields, and that's the end of that conversation. Then
Yeah, exactly.
let's get into it then. Let's start the 25th of February. We head off down to Cardiff, which we didn't realise was going to be our home on a numerous occasions. We settled into Cardiff in the Millennium Stadium, lovely. At the time, Wembley was being rebuilt. So this was the first game to be played there. And what a game it was. What a game Birmingham gave us on the day. Ended up running out 1-1. And then we had that 5-4 penalty shootout. What was your memories of that one? Good Lord, Niall Boyder.
Sander Westerveld's celebration when he saved the winning penalty. My biggest thing to stick out from that was Jamie Carragher's penalty. Because back then Jamie Carragher was a bit, it was hot and cold. He put in a bad game. It was a terribly bad game. He put in a good game. It was an outstanding performance. I think we've seen a bit of everything in those first few years with Carragher. But I just remember the celebrations though. Because there was so many, like we won 5 trophies that season. We won the Charity Shield, we won the UEFA Super Cup. But that was a decent Birmingham side. Andy Johnson leading the line, like he went on to be a thorn in Liverpool side at Everton. But it was just one of those cup finals. Nobody really gave Birmingham a chance. They thought Liverpool would turn up and wipe the floor with them. But as we've seen against Cardiff, like many years later, it just doesn't work out that way. And a cup final is a cup final for a reason. Everything that happens on that day. But we came out the better side of it. But the one thing that stands out is if you watch the celebrations when Westerveld saves the winning penalty, and Carragher just runs straight past him and just nosedives into the Liverpool fan. Yeah. It's just class, because when Liverpool win trophies, the Scousers in the team, you automatically, they stand out like a sore thumb. You look at when we won the 2005 Champions League, Carragher runs, slaps Dudek in the face, and off he goes into the crowd. Like, it's just typical Scousers. But it's just outstanding. Obviously we've had more success down the line and we've enjoyed it with a piss up and all, but just imagine it being out, well, for me personally, old enough to drink back in that season. Jesus Christ, I'd probably still be suffering with a hangover.
Yeah, multiple hangovers. And as you said, like, talking about Robbie and Jamie and all these Scousers that are in the team, and you always described them as being one of us. They're never more than one of us when we win something like that and they end up in the crowd. It's crazy.
It's mad that we say like they're one of us. Like, we're not Scouts, but I think everyone on the outside looking in knows what we mean when we say one of us, because it's great to have the homegrown talent in the team, especially people like Jamie Carragher, like Robbie Fowler, like Steven Gerrard. Like, you look back at, like, I was watching clips. I always come across Liverpool videos on YouTube, and you always go back to the old clips. And you look at Steven Gerrard in that cup final against Alves. Jeez, he looks about 15. The spot's still on his face, the skinhead. He literally looks like he walked out Stanley Park after kicking the book out of the Crocky crew or something. But it's just it was a great time to be a Liverpool fan. Michael Owen was like, he's an adopted Scouser, let's say. He was only from the outskirts and all. And just, even though further on down the line what he did down to Man United, I think everybody hates him now and nobody wants him to be an ambassador for the club. But at that time, like, the spine of that team was Scouts. Do you know what I mean? And we're on the way towards that again. We have Curtis, we have Trent. There's a few other Scouts lads coming through the youth system. And it won't be long before that the spine of that team is Scouts again. And it's something that I look forward to personally as a fan.
Don't forget Costas as well. He's part of that Scout spine, isn't he?
Tom Matthews is definitely Scouser.
Yeah, absolutely. Tom
Matthews is definitely Scouser.
Yeah, so that was kind of nail biting, but yeah, it's we do love a penalty shootout anyway, don't we? So we'd have to put that out there without a shadow.
There's no better way to win a cup final. Well, obviously you'd like to win 5 or 6-0 against Man United, but penalty shootout, just because the relief just leaves you as you're celebrating the glory. But yeah, there's no better way to win than in a penalty shootout.
Absolutely. Let's move on. Part 2 is the FA Cup final. And again, we're really making our home down here now in Cardiff. What was your thinking on this one? This was a tough one, wasn't it? We were going up against a tough Arsenal side. And I just remember when we went 1-0 down, that goal that they scored, God, we sunk a bit, didn't we?
Yeah, like I remember the teams coming out and it was absolutely sweltering. Yeah, like I just remember the atmosphere in the stadium, because if you watch back the Cardiff stadium, it's kind of like just goes up straight. So it's just like a cauldron. So because it was so warm outside the ground, then obviously you have that heat, that intensity in the ground. And I remember the teams walking out and they had the fire flingers, and you could just see this, like the red faces. But out comes the Arsenal team, calm as you like, all these Mediterranean players, the calmness of the French guys. And the Liverpool on that day were as good as anybody back then. But you're looking at that Arsenal team coming out, and this was like one of the best Arsenal teams of all time. You had Henry, you Pires, Ashley Cole was in the team, Winterborn is there, like all these quality players, like that. They were the favourites that day. Freddie Lundberg, like they're absolutely outstanding. And then they go the goal up, and you're thinking, it's going to be really, really tough when Arsenal. If anyone watched back to that Arsenal team, when they took a lead in the game, it was very, very hard to get it back, because they could, like that, if you were trying to get that equaliser, they could turn it on like that to catch on the counter and just destroy it. And we've seen it countless times in games against Liverpool. Standout memory was that winning goal, though. Over the top, the speed. Michael Owen, before he got that injury, nobody could touch him. Just got onto a left foot, and like the only place he could put that was where he put it to get the goal. The equaliser, though, was quite good as well. We talked about this when we were talking about we've done the Legend series and Robbie Fowler. The pounce and how he spun on the two-pence to hit that volley into the bottom corner. And again, I just remember the little flip over into the corner in front of the Liverpool fans. And was it Robbie Fowler that hops onto his back first? And then off you come Jamie Carragher, the usual suspects and all. But
I just remember he flipped, and then he just stood like that with the arms out like that, soaking in the adulation,
It was outstanding, especially against that. I think it made it more sweeter that was against that Arsenal team as well, because you look back over the years, a lot of the FA Cup finals were kind of an outsider against one of the favourites, but we were definitely the underdogs that day. And then especially when Arsenal scored to take the lead, everybody kind of worried, well, that's it. It's Arsenal's trophy now. But we just kept going and kept going and kept going. And I think in the end, if you watch that game back, I think in the end we deserved to win it. But obviously we won 2-1, but I think we deserved to win it, and how we just kept going at them.
I think Arsenal as well in the game, especially first half, created a lot of chances. They were creating chances constantly as well. We got away with a few, if I can remember rightly. And then that's when they scored, remember? But yeah, I think on the balance of it, I suppose looking at it, was the timing of it as well that really sunk them, wasn't it? Because it was last ditch, really. Whereas I think if it had happened maybe halfway through the second half, I think they might have got back into it. We might have been staring down on another penalty shootout, maybe, or extra time or something like that, But I think there was just a wave. If you look at Liverpool at that stage as well, they're really, really good players. They're playing good football and stuff like that. But there was a wave of luck with us as well, wasn't it? Lady luck was with us at times, And I just think that I just remember that goal. He bounced off Dixon, I think it was, and just ran in on goal. And the beat Seaman was in nets, wasn't he? The beat Seaman the way.
I'm looking at that the Arsenal team now, like Vieira, Silvino, Ashley Cole was in the squad, Giles Gramondi, Freddie Lundberg, Martin Keown, like David Seaman in the sticks. Like, that's one of the best Arsenal teams there's been in the club's history. But, like, I'm looking at the Liverpool team as well. Like, there's no Gary McAllister, Patrick Berger, Danny Murphy, Stephen Gerrard, Robbie Fowler, Michael Owen. But again, like as you said, like if that had been Liverpool taking the goal lead, you'd imagine that Arsenal would have just pressed and pressed and pressed and pressed and pressed. But like as you said, like they could have came back into it. They had numerous chances. I remember one chance Emil Heskey tried to clear and it landed at Freddie Lundberg and it looked like it was going in and Stefan Onchow got it off the line, you know.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
We did kind of ride the lady luck stick at times, but you know, at the end of the day, you need a bit of luck in everything you do these days. But that was, you know, this is what, when people say this is the Mickey Mouse treble, I look back to performances like that when we get on to the UEFA Cup final, like as well, like teams necessarily now, like if Liverpool were to play Alves now, everybody would say, nah, Liverpool every day of the week. If Liverpool were to play Arsenal now, Liverpool every day of the week. Back then, in a cup final, regardless of who you're playing, it was the toss of a coin on the day. But of the three of them, that was the sweetest one for me to win because of how good Arsenal were. And on paper, we were good, but you know, just looking at that Arsenal team, I don't think anybody really gave us a chance that day.
Yeah, I think the Honcho one, was that the one where they were screaming for a handball? And they didn't get it. Yeah.
There was no VAR back then. Thank you.
Thank God. But yeah, I think you're right. I think if you were looking at a combined 11 there for that final, would be an interesting debate and conversation. That could be something maybe we get an Arsenal fan on one day to do a combined 11 for that final. We'll create some interesting debate, but there's no doubt in terms of us, we were very workmanlike and stuff like that. But in terms of Arsenal, they were serious ballers, weren't they?
Yeah, like that was just. Yeah. These are guys that if they were still playing nowadays, they'd still probably be in the best Premier League 11 at the end of the season. Like,
yeah, most Arsenal fans at the moment wishes they were still there, I'd say.
Yeah, what you said there, we try and get an Arsenal fan on and get their perspective. But I think it'll be 5 or 6 years before we see an Arsenal fan again.
I think if they had their way with the Monday night game coming up, they'd nearly throw a Dreamcast jersey back on Vieira coming out of the tunnel, would they?
Like, yeah, as Roy Keane said, he was asked there a couple of weeks ago, he was like, what's Arsenal missing nowadays? And he said, Patrick Vieira. They've no leaders in the team whatsoever. And I touched on this during the summer. They're just a mess at the moment. You know, the good performances lately are just papering over the cracks, in my opinion. You know, and it's just a state of execution. It's the exact same as Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. All these bad performances, and you have one or two good performances, and it's just a state of execution. And then it comes to the end of the season, and it's like, here, there's more money. You know, let's see how you go on at the start of the season. But come here, fortunately for us, we're not in that quagmire at the moment. But we have no money, and we're still going to win the league. So I'm happy out. Are you?
Who says you need money to win a league?
We need money for going over to Liverpool.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move on. The third part of the treble obviously was the UEFA Cup final against Alves. Again, another nail biter. I literally thought when I was watching this, we were home and host. There was no problem here at all. And the next thing, it was the madness of it was crazy.
Just absolute. To go 2 up, you know, you think I'm home and host. This is going to be a piss take cricket score. They come back into the game. It's sending off the golden goal. I don't, when I went in and everybody was running, I was like, hold up here. We still have another bit to go in extra time. I don't even think Gary McAllister realised that the game was up. You know, if you've seen the goals now, you watch the highlights now when he's celebrating that everyone's coming to him and he's looking around like, right, chill lads. And then someone, no, we've won, golden goal. It's an awful shame that they didn't hang around with that, isn't it?
I'd say Gary Mack just had no more energy in him left to run around. He just wanted everyone to come to him. I'd say, what a player.
Yeah, because if you look back to when he's taken that free kick, and he always wore the long sleeve jersey with the jersey hanging out and the socks be nearly down around his ankles and all. And because he was old at the time and the sagging face, if you watch back when he's taking that free kick, and then when he realizes that we won, and even when he's like, yeah, don't have it in me, boys. Like, someone's gonna have to get me a wheelchair here.
Yeah, what a player, unbelievable. And then, of course, we went on. I mean, obviously, by winning these cup competitions and securing the treble, it led on to the Charity Shield and the UEFA Super, which we both went on to win as well. So like it was a real time for Liverpool, wasn't it? 5 trophies in that space of time. Like, it's incredible.
Yeah. That was me kind of me forced, like I don't think was that UEFA Super Cup around for much, like for a long time before that cup final, before that season.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, well, that was kind of my forced time of understanding. Obviously Liverpool hadn't won a Champions League or won a UEFA Cup previous to that, like for a long time, regarding especially with European trophies. So like when it came around to that final, that was my kind of forced understanding of it. It was kind of my forced dealings with it as a fan. In the Monaco Stadium, John Arne Riise. No, yeah, it was John Arne Riise, was it? Did we beat Bayern Munich?
I think so, yeah. I'm really sure we did, didn't we? It was Bayern Munich, wasn't it?
I'm nearly sure it was. Yeah, Bayern Munich.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
That was kind of, forced dealings with that as a fan. Michael, I'm just looking at the pictures of it here. Robbie Fowler, Sammy Hippie, and Jamie Redknapp lifting the trophy together and all. And John Arne Riise scored. Emil Heskey. It was a very, very good game. Just at that time, Michael Owen was the best player on the planet. He won the Ballon d'Or.
On the Ballon d'Or, yeah.
I think 19, 18 or 19, was he?
19, I think, yeah, 19.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like that, you look back now, like you look at that Arsenal team, that just shows you how good we're. If you look back to that Liverpool team with a mix of everything, you had the experience of Sammy Hippie, you had Gary McAllister there, Robbie Fowler was in his twilight, Michael Owen coming onto the scene like the fucking fireball, Steven Gerrard, Danny Murphy, Jamie Redknapp had that experience in him, just unfortunately plagued with injuries. John Arne Riise coming into them. People don't realise how good Emil Heskey was.
Didi Hamann as well,
Didi Hamann, he was so underrated. Patrick Berger always popped up with important goals. Elf Laddie Smith.
Need I mention Yari Lippmann?
You know what I mean? Yari Lippmann is a god in some people's eyes. My brother, I remember when we signed Yari Lippmann, and my brother was like, "Oh my God, we signed Yari Lippmann off Ajax," and then Karl-Heinz Riedle came. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you look at the team now, but you look back then, like the kids nowadays don't even realise how good some of the players were we had back then. But just Emil Heskey and Jamie Carragher was talking about rightly so recently about how underrated he was in that Liverpool team. He was on fire that season in that Liverpool team. A couple of hat-tricks. We were blessed. The fact that Robbie Fowler fell out with Gerard Houllier and Phil Thompson, we still had Emil Heskey there and Michael Owen. You know what I mean? But then when Robbie was called upon, he always popped up with goals. That was my first great Liverpool team, and fortunately enough for me and you, but more so for the likes of Ben and for Dylan coming up as Liverpool fans, like they're getting to experience what we did. Like this is their kind of forced understanding of glory because they're at the age now to understand it. But back then, this season was my forced understanding of glory and what Liverpool really meant to their fans. Because at the end of the 5 trophies, the parade with the fans, remember the first home game of the following season, and it's just that lift that's instilled in the club. And it's great that we're back in that era and period now that hopefully there's more coming this season.
Yeah, hopefully, absolutely, fingers crossed. I suppose the only sad news was at the end of that season was Joe Fagan sadly passed away. Hard to believe that on a season so littered with silverware that we would lose Joe Fagan. It just beggars belief, really, at 80 years of age,
He had a good innings, but it's almost as if, I know why people might say it's stupid when you say this, but Joe Fagan was the man who literally dug the foundations for Shankly and Paisley, you know what I mean? And that was the start of the greatness that the club had. Like, that was the man who single-handedly came up with the idea of the boot room. And, you know, we'd went that long without success that we won 5 trophies, and his body, this is what I'm thinking, you know, as a Liverpool fan, his body was like, well, you've seen the success, you've seen it all, you built this, and you've seen the success come back into the club, and you're at ease now. Because I'd imagine he was one of the happiest people under the sun, right? To see that success, to see the happiness, someone that's so revered in the club as well. Like, we done the special on him not long ago.
Yeah.
And as you said, like, it's 20 years celebrating the treble, but it's also 20 years celebrating the life of Joe Fagan. And, you know, we always look at the thumbnail that we put up for that special podcast, and the black and white and the Champions League trophy and all. And you look back at all the pictures of him sitting by the pool with the shades on and the Champions League trophy beside him in rock. You know, it's just, it's sad. It's sad in a sense, but it's also like it's come full circle for him. Do you know what I mean? Because he wasn't young. 80 years of age is a good innings. You know, I think we'd all be happy if we get to that age. But you know, yeah, as you said, to top, that was the kind of when we won all the success. We said goodbye to Joe Fagan.
Yeah, I'm sure he had that huge smile experience. Yeah, that smile he had from ear to ear, without a shadow of a doubt. Let's get into some of the stats from the season. 127 goals scored that season. Basically 2 goals a game. That's a serious return. You talking there about Owen, obviously, and Fowler and Heskey. We were pretty potent up front, weren't we, as well? And then blend that in with the likes of Gary Mack and Stevie J and Danny Murphy as well. I often talk on these podcasts when we're talking about Liverpool about how we need all the team chiming in with goals, not just the front three. And a lot of the success of that season was a lot of players chiming in with goals, even though the boys were prolific.
Yeah, I think across that season as well, I might be wrong on this, but I'm nearly sure all of our defence scored at least 1 goal that season. The midfield really chimed in. The attacking line, the forward line, like, it needn't be said how good they were. But as you said, 127 goals in all competitions, 5 trophies. You know, you're not going to get 127. What's it, 42 goals each for your strikers? You know, people had to toe the line, and that's one thing we've touched on about this season, is that if we're going to get the success that we're going to get anywhere near a trophy this year, everyone has to toe the line. And even though the team we have now on paper necessarily is better than back then, people are starting to toe the line. Like, people are starting to chip in. And I've touched on it. I was ever the optimist during the summer when I realised that we weren't going to spend money. But like, the more Saturday is going to be very, very telling. You know, I'm not going to make a prediction on Saturday's game because, you know yourself, a new manager comes in and it's always seems to be that first game. You know, they get that the rub of the green, or they get that win, and, you know, it's kind of lift off, and then it steadies itself out. So I'm not going to make a prediction on the weekend, but one thing I will say is I'm quietly confident the fact that Mo was doing what he's doing in second gear. Sadio seems to be enjoying himself again. Jota might be available for the weekend. We're not 100% sure, but come here, I'm not too down if Divock Origi starts the weekend. So, you know, as much as I'm not pessimistic, kind of top 50-50 on the fence about Saturday, there are players there who are just itching to take the chance if given. And that reminds me of that 2001 season, because, you know, people are taking the baton and sharing the load. So look, we'll see how it goes.
Absolutely. 69 points we got in the league that season. 95-96 was the highest tally since 95-96. 69 points. I'm thinking these days, 69 points, you barely escape relegation nearly, wouldn't you?
69 points, you fucking fourth from bottom of the table. Like, 69 points, Jesus Christ. We won the league on 99 points, 30 points in the difference. Yeah. It's mad to see how the standard of the Premier League has taken up. Like, if you look at last season's table, who finished on 69 points? I'd say they're probably about 8th or 9th in the table.
23 games is 69 points. You'd be disappointed if you nearly didn't have that by January, wouldn't you?
I think we did. I think we had over 69 points the year we won the league, did we? At Christmas time.
Oh, wouldn't be at Christmas time, but say towards the end of January, definitely anyway.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And that was, obviously we won 5 trophies, so it was considered a good season, but if we got 69 points, I think I'd bury my head in the sand for about 10 months this summer.
Yeah. 63 games we played that season.
Jesus Christ. If we played 63 games this season, they'd be calling on fans to give a dig out. Not as that fair. 63, like, but as I said, I think Liverpool play their best football when they have a game every 3 or 4 days. You know what I mean?
When we're busy and we're in that mode. Just
and that's
game after game after game.
Best example of that is when we went to the Club World Cup, and when we came into the start of December and everybody wrote us off saying this is it, this is when Liverpool break, and we won every single game. I don't think we dropped any points. We came back from Brazil or Qatar, played Leicester on Stephen's Day, and put in one of the best performances I've ever seen as a Liverpool fan. We absolutely battered them from pillar to post. It could have been about 10-0. But I've always said over the years that Liverpool play their best football when they're busy. So, you know.
Absolutely. Winning is a habit and momentum is key.
Exactly.
61 appearances by Sander Westerveld, you mentioned him yesterday, was the highest total of any member in the squad. And Marcus Babel, believe it or not, played the most games for an outfield player with 60 matches.
What a fucking hero. Absolute hero. He reminds me, Steve Finnan reminds me of Marcus Babel. Just a workhorse. Just went about his business under the radar. So underrated. Marcus Babel was absolutely quality for Liverpool. Popped up with that goal in the Merseyside derby. Didn't know what to do when he scored. The worst celebration I've ever seen as of a footballer. But yeah, outstanding player. Just unfortunate what happened to him towards the end of his career. He got that illness, you know, and at one stage it looked like he was gonna fucking pass away. He ended up in a wheelchair, skin and bones, you know, but gave everything for the cause, and Royally deserves to be mentioned when we talk about great defenders that played for the club. Marcus Babel, even though he wasn't there for a long time, is definitely talked about as one of the great defenders. He was world class, that guy.
Absolutely. 38 wins we had in all competitions.
Can't go wrong with that. It's just unfortunate that we didn't top it off with a league title that year. But when you look back then, it was just unfortunate that the great Man United and Arsenal teams were around then, where it's the same as now. When you talk about Mo Salah not winning the Ballon d'Or, it's because he's been, and Virgil van Dijk, it's because he's been in the era of Messi and Ronaldo. But back then, the great Liverpool teams, Gerrard and Carragher talk about it now, they just didn't have that killer instinct, and plus they were in a net with that Arsenal team and that Man United team. But you know, it's, as you said, it's bittersweet. You might lose out the league on a few points, but you know, certainly made up for it with 5 trophies.
But here's an interesting stat for you now, and this is one that was, I like this one. When I see a team doing this, I'm very, very impressed. 31 times we netted in the final 15 minutes. There's desire wrapped up in a stat, isn't it?
Again, comparisons to the Jurgen Klopp team. When we went to go down, you just fought and fought. It's exactly the way what it has been under Jurgen Klopp. When we went to goal down, the switch went on that, you know, we have to take it up the gears. We've seen it for 2 or 3 years now, not necessarily last year, but we've seen it time and time again under Jurgen Klopp, that when you really had to get motoring, when you really needed that lift in the gears or that lift in the level, you know, everyone jumped in as one. You know, we needed to get back into the games. So yeah, that's again massive comparisons to Jurgen Klopp's teams, and nobody's talking about how great a manager Gerard Houllier was and how greatly he spoke of by players that were in that team other than Robbie Fowler.
Yeah, I think, remember back to that time as well, a lot of that agenda with Robbie was driven a bit by Tomo as well, wasn't it? Himself and Tomo had a massive falling out, you know what I mean? Of course, Gerrard would have to side with Tomo. Tomo was his number one, you know what I mean? So
so fickle as well. That was almost sticking his nose, his ear, and his ears out. You know, I'm superior to you. Like, this all came about from Phil Thompson being in the goal, Robbie Fowler kicking the ball at the net and clattering him in the head, everyone laughing at him, and Tomo throwing his toys out of the pram. Said it like that's like, he's old school Liverpool to the core, Phil Thompson. Why didn't he just make a laugh and a joke about it? Makes a big deal about it. Robbie Fowler's pushed out the door, and even when he talks about now, if you read Robbie Fowler's book, the biggest regret he had in his whole career was walking away from Liverpool. You know what I mean?
100%. 28 players used that season. Sounds very much squad rotation there, isn't it? Which is key.
I'm sure it's key. Again, massive comparisons to this season. Yeah, like, again, when we talk about when Robbie Fowler was out of the team, you had Michael Owen and Heskey. When Owen was out of the team, it was Heskey and Robbie Fowler. In the middle of the park, you had Smitzer, Berger, Danny Murphy, Stephen Gerrard, Jamie Redknapp. You know, in the defence, like, you know, with Carragher coming through, Stefan Onshaw, Jamie, Sammy Hippier, Marcus Babel. You know, we didn't have a massive squad. Like, with young lads coming, I think Stephen Wright was part of the squad as well back then. Like, we didn't have a massive squad. We had a lot of David Thompson was there. So yeah, it was great. That's probably why we won the trophies, you know, the squad rotation, keeping ideas fresh. But I think what you said about the amount of goals we scored across the team. But again, I think it comes down to having that bit of quality to sit on the bench attacking wise, because we didn't really play the three up top together.
Yeah.
Whereas we look at the team now, Bobby's coming in for Jota, or Jota's coming in for Bobby. And back then it was the exact same way. But on any given day, the front three we had back then were world beater.
And three very different front men. They all brought something different. You know what I mean? Like, you had the skill of Owen and stuff like that, being slight and small and tricky and stuff like that. You had Robbie, who could just score all sorts of different goals, just knew where to be, a proper poacher at times. And then you had the power of Heskey, which was unbelievable.
You had the power of Heskey, but geez, a couple of the goals he scored. I remember one he took it down on the touch and on, like, side on, and with the outside of his boot, lobbed the keeper. Robbie Fowler, most natural goal scorer I've ever seen in my whole life. And I think you ask any Liverpool fan who's had the privilege of watching Ian Rush, Kenny Dalglish, Robbie Fowler, Michael Owen, Fernando Torres, Mo Salah, Sadio Mane, Luis Suarez. Every single one of them will tell you the most natural goal scorer they've ever seen is Robbie Fowler. And then you had Michael Owen, who had that 5 or 6 yard pick. He knew what he was doing before he even got the ball. You look at some of the goals he scored. That goal against Arsenal, to win the FA Cup, he knew what he was doing before he even got the ball. And I think only Michael Owen could do that in those instances. Whereas Robbie Fowler would score 45 yard lobs. He'd bury one into the top corner from 30 yards. For a guy who's not that big in stature, he's one of the best headers of a ball we've ever seen. Yeah. And then like, as you said, you need that three different, because now the defense didn't know what to do with them. If you put Michael Owen up against the fence, they knew they were going to get tore asunder. You put Robbie Fowler up there, they knew that, like, just like that, out of nothing, you could get a goal. And as you said, Emil Heskey would throw a defender from one side of the box to the other with a shoulder and have an open goal to tap it into. But he scored a goal against Derby that year. I think he scored a hat-trick. The ball came to him, he let it go through his legs, he turned and forced him into the top corner, and he nearly knocked the fucking goal over.
Yeah, absolutely. What a powerhouse. Michael Owen, 24 goals that season, and Emil Heskey, 22. Incredible return.
Outstanding return. And this is a time as well when England had a lot of good strikers. And I think that was the year that they went and gave Germany a 5-1, and it was the three Liverpool lads that scored the goals: Heskey, Owen, and Gerrard. So you know, that's between them, what, 40 many goals?
46 altogether.
46 goals from 127. So you look at the rest of the team, scored 81 goals between them. That's phenomenal. Like,
yeah, it's incredible.
phenomenal. And we look at the season where between the three boys up top for Liverpool, I think they scored over 100 goals. But that shows you how good this team was back then as a collective unit.
And how good the team is now.
And that goes without saying.
12 times a substitute scored coming off the bench. And of course, we know Robbie was most of them.
Yeah. Just blasphemy even saying that God was a sub.
Yeah, it is.
Blasphemy. His hat-trick against Leicester. Was that the following? No, that was that season, wasn't it? Because this was his last season, was it? I think
So, yeah.
Yeah, his hat-trick against Leicester, I think it was a right foot, left foot header. Says it all. The guy was just unbelievable.
I can't imagine being in the dressing room at Anfield and your name in the team, and the team sheet comes out and it's going, and our subs today, Robbie Fowler, and you go, what? I tell you, Robbie Fowler.
I think he done it to prove a point as well that he was boss, because there's a lot of stories came out with that the way it was back then. Like, he knew the book stopped with him, and a lot of people only softened up to him after what happened with his ticker, because there was a lot of people who held that against Gerard Houllier for a long. There's still a lot of people who hold it against Phil Thompson as well, the way Robbie Fowler was mistreated.
Yeah.
But yeah, like in hindsight, what a player to have coming off the bench. You know what I mean? It's the way it is now. Like, I've no qualms with Bobby coming off the bench, or if Diogo's coming off the bench. Yeah. So back then we looked at it as, geez, what's Robbie doing on the bench? But you look back on it now, you need that bit of quality coming off the bench. It's something that we don't have nowadays. I'm not to be still able to play. I'm glad to take Robbie into the squad again.
If I mentioned 10 years and I mentioned Old Trafford and I mentioned Danny Murphy and I mentioned a free kick, would that ring a bell with you?
Danny the man killer. What a man. What a man. Again, another player who didn't want to leave Liverpool. And when he talks about Liverpool now, he talks about that miserable decision he made to leave Liverpool when Rafa came in, and he could have went on and won the Champions League. But Danny the man killer. What he popped up with? 4 or 5 winners against Man United in his time as a Liverpool player. I remember Steven Gerrard. It's the goal that stands out for me. Steven Gerrard. I think the Monday Night Football, Gerrard must literally be on the outside the 18-yard box, dinks it into Danny Murphy, who lobs Peter Schmeichel, I think, was it Van der Sar, was it? I think Van der Sar.
I'd say Van der Sar, yeah. But
lobbed Van der Sar on his line, and off he went into the spotlight. He scored that wonderful free kick as well from a fair old distance. I just remember that absolutely manky white jersey that we wore. Wasn't a fan of that at all, but he was a long sleever as well. Just remember off into the halfway line to celebrate to the Liverpool fans and all. But and he's a fond old hero of mine. I remember bumping into him about 15 years ago on Grattan Street. I don't think anybody realised, as you know, we could be walking down anywhere and there's Robbie Fowler. But I was like he's coming around the front of the International Art Lounge. I was like, it's Danny Murphy. And I was like, Danny. And he turned around and I was like, what's the story, pal? And I was like, the man killer. And he gave a little one of them, get in there.
Deadly. 9 new signings came in that season. Let's run down through them. Some of these people won't even recognise. Peggy R. Fexit, Babel, Barnby, Igor Biscan, Bernard Diamendi, who I think was actually a really good player, just didn't get a real good shot there at Liverpool, but was a proper talent, Yari Littman and who we mentioned, Gary Mack, of course, Christian Ziege, and rounded out with Gregory Vignal.
I'm looking at some of the names here. Peggy Arpixhead. Peggy fucking Arpixhead.
Yeah, fix it, yeah.
It's hard to fathom that we signed some of these players, but when you think about it, well, Babel, like underrated cult hero. Nick Barmby got a lift across Stanley Park on a moped. The uproar over that signing. Igor Bishkan. I won't have anybody speak a bad word about Igor Bishkan. That man used to smoke in the shower at Anfield. He put a ball. I just remember his ball in the Champions League quarter final against Deportivo. There wasn't enough room for the football to go through the two players, and he put it through the two. You know what I mean? That fella deserves the Champions League medal just for that alone. Gary Littman, yeah, as you said, Bernard Diomede. Just unfortunate that we had the talent that we had in the middle of the park. Gerrard coming through and taking everyone by storm. Gary Mack, like James Milner. James Milner is the modern day Gary Mack. Danny Murphy doing what he does best. Patrick Berger, Vladimir Smoitzer. So it's just unfortunate these players were around at a time when we had that much quality there. Yardy Littman, and needn't say anything about him. The man's a footballing god to some people. Christian Ziege, like you forget he even played for the club. He was outstanding on his day.
Awesome player, yeah, absolutely.
And then Gregory Vignal, now, think over time, if you look at his Liverpool career, it wasn't really great, but remember some games where he did stand up, you know what I mean, and he took a hit for the team, and all these players on that day fought for the cause, so you can't really hold anything against them. But yeah, some good signings. That I just remember that was the summer where back in the day you used to get the 5 or 6 signings together with the manager, and they'd all be hunkered together in the stand.
Yeah.
Missed those days.
We brought in 9. It was nearly like a team foul of near loan signings. Yeah, absolutely. 8. We stuffed Stoke 8-0.
Big Sammy Hippier. No, did we not get Birmingham a hiding as well that year?
We may have, but we're on the number 8, so it was 8-0 against Stoke.
The good days. That's why when they came back and gave us that hiding 6-1 when Gerrard's last game, it was definitely repaying the debt for that one.
I think it's still this day, isn't it, the highest margin for an away victory in the club's history?
And like to win 2 or 3-0 away from home is fantastic, but to go and give someone a hiding, back then Stoke wouldn't have been. They wouldn't have been a major shake in football. That they kind of veered off the path again now. But on that day they did have good teams over the years. But back then, again, if we turned up against any team that season, we gave them a hiding. And unfortunately for Stoke that year,
they were on the end of that one.
We're on fire.
7 red cards in the season, 2 in the Arsenal game in August.
Yeah,
McAllister and Eddie Hammond.
Was Stephen Gerrard sent off in a Merseyside derby this season? Was he?
Not sure. I don't think he was actually. Was he? Don't know. He wasn't.
It was strange to see Didi. It's strange to see the 2 of them sent off. I'm actually going to look back after this podcast now and back to that game and see them getting sent off, because you hear red cards and you hear the Gary McAllister and Didi Hammond, it's not something that you'd put to those 2 boys' names. So
I don't know. Two lads that wouldn't shirk a tackle.
Wouldn't shirk a tackle, but they always seem to get away with it. 7 red cards in the season. Thank God we topped the fair play awards nowadays.
Yeah, 5 is the number of minutes that separated Owen's brace in the FA Cup final. 5 minutes of absolute mayhem.
Yeah, I just never ever forget that winning goal. Anyone that talks about, because they talk about the Steven Gerrard final and they talk about the Michael Owen final, Steven Gerrard final, it is what it is. You know what I mean? That's kind of that's our best FA Cup final win, because of how the game went. The 2 goals he scored, only Steven Gerrard could score them goals. But if you look back to that final, I think those are 2 goals that only Michael Owen could score as well. That how we got away from was it Parlour or Dixon?
Dixon.
Like to get it, like Lee Dixon was one of the best in the game back then. You know, mightn't have that pace, but he could read. He read the game very, very well.
Brilliant player. Brilliant player.
Absolutely fantastic. Michael Owen, like just to shrug him off. This is a guy who's 5'5", 5'6". Very, very sly.
Weighed about 110 soaking wet.
Yeah, if even. I think me young lad Lewis is heavier than Michael Owen. But yeah, just David Seaman, one of the best goalkeepers in the world at the time, but just to put that ball where he did with his bad foot, you know, one of the best goals in FA Cup history for me.
Yeah, 4 hat-tricks scored that season. We already touched on it. 2 for Owen, 1 for Fowler, 1 for Heskey.
Need we say more?
Nothing else to be said. And we finish out with 1. Liverpool, the only team to beat Roma that year in their stadium in the whole of the 2000-2001 season.
And what a performance it was as well. Michael Owen.
Absolutely.
And a raucous affair. Absolutely raucous. With them Rome fans, they don't do anything fucking half-arsed.
Proper cauldron.
Proper cauldron is right. We went over there and done the business, and you know, as you said, finish off with 1. Even though we won 5, we finish off with 1 because that, as you said, going over there, the only team to beat Roma over in the Stadio Olympia that season. On our day, we were absolutely fantastic. Great man management. Everyone talks about the love they have for Gerard Houllier. May rest in peace. You know, gave me my first big dose of success as a Liverpool fan. You know, had that terrible thing that happened with his heart. Came back. We needed to beat Roma that night by 2 goals. We beat them by 2 goals, and you know, that season. Every time we talk about that season, that picture pays fitting tribute to it. We have gods, and then we had the man that came in and changed the culture of Liverpool Football Club.
Absolutely. Well, listen, it's been a pleasure looking back on this treble season with you. Some people would refer to it as the Mickey Mouse treble. I tell those people, keep on counting your charity shields. But if you do want to mention big ears, we've 6 of them. Dino, until next time, this has been our look back on the treble 2001 season, and what a season it was. Roll on the weekend, the Premier League back. Come on, you Red Men. Let's do this.